So I'm really here today to share 3 things with you. Why I believe that this work is so important, how I know that computer science for all will become a reality, and what I believe it takes to get it done. And this is going to come from my experience in Chicago. So I've had the honor of working in technology, education, evangelism for over 18 years, though I don't think I knew that that's what I was doing when I started. So after working in tech for the first half of my career, I decided to leave tech when we started our family, and that was my introduction into education. I got to go to work at a community college as adjunct faculty. And it was really impactful on me because I got to meet people who were coming into my classes, and these were people who were coming into classes after working all day. They came in at night, or they came in on the weekends. And they were coming hoping that they would have a better life and get access to tech. But most of them were coming because they had never had access to that type of education before. They were women, most of them. Many of them were minorities. And on their faces and in their voices, I saw fear and disappointment. Many of them had worked at jobs where people had told them that they couldn't do things. And so they worked in jobs that had been unsatisfying to them, both as work and financially. So that was my first real opportunity to connect my own experiences with some of these students, which I'll tell you about later. So I grew up as the child of 2 educators, and it really affected me to come in contact with adults. These were adults, they were between 18 and 80, who might have chosen technical careers, but then now had the courage to go up against all kinds of odds and try to make this change in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and add ageism to one of their barriers. You know, I understood some of what they were going through, having been a Black female technologist, but growing up where I was in high school, my high school was all Black, not all poor, just all Black, but we did not have computer science. And so I didn't have access either. So I could relate to what it meant to get to something and have that gap. Now, let's think about that for a minute. So over 10 years, I actually worked with thousands of people in that situation. And let's think about the fact that across our country, there are multiple thousands like them in cities all over our nation. And that this has a huge social and economic impact. I'm thinking not only of the impact to the individuals, but to their families, to their communities. Not just during their lives, but during their retirement. I recently had someone say to me when we were talking about the situation, when I was talking about the fact that Black women will make 58 cents to 67 cents to a white male's dollar. But that's not only impactful on my ability to take care of my family, but it impacts me in my retirement. And they said, how is that? I don't have to explain that to those of you in this room. But that very fact makes what you are doing so much more important. And one of the reasons why I believe that CS for All is an economic imperative, if I can get that out. So now we all know that CS is a major driver of innovation. But I want you to stop and think for a moment what our world right now might look like if everyone who could have contributed got to. What if all of the women who never got those jobs had gotten those jobs? Or women like me who left because I felt like I couldn't stay and have a family got to stay? What about African Americans and Latinos and otherly abled people? And what if Alan Turing hadn't had to deal with prosecution for being gay? Now, I bring these things up because when we talk about computer science for all, I don't want any of us to go to sleep on what all means. It's very easy to start to think about things in a big group and think that if we take care of this for those that we do understand, the others will get it. We won't get to all that way. I think that was my earring, I'm sorry. Okay. So now those of you who know me know that the way that I made sure that no student disappeared into the monolith of all in my work at Chicago Public Schools, that all remained very sensitive to me, was that I named my student. His name was Pookie. Her name was Pookie. In that way, Pookie never lost a face. She never lost her dream. Pookie's challenges never went stale for me. Pookie's dreams remained personal for me. Pookie helped me stay focused on a student like, I'll call her Sheila. She was a student who had witnessed domestic violence, and so when she came to school, she acted out. And it wasn't often enough that she came to school. Until she was introduced to computer science, the right way, by a loving teacher. She had thought she wanted to be, when she grew up, someone who worked at McDonald's, until she learned had the tactile experiences and the co-creative experiences and learned to collaborate in our classrooms, such that by the end of the semester, she wanted to be an engineer. Look at the space that it took and what it really took to make that change. It was very simple. I also think about 4 of our Southside students. They called themselves Scholars with Drive. They won an app challenge by creating a tool that would help students in dangerous neighborhoods navigate their way to school and get to school on time. These are students many people would call other and think that maybe, well, we'll get to them later. But they're now developers, they're innovators, they're creators, and isn't that what CS for All is about? When you think about it, the economic imperative for students like these should be driver enough for us to keep going. Many of those students, if they go on and they become an engineer or they get into tech, their starting salary will dwarf the salaries of probably their entire family, their entire household. Therefore, let's drive on. Often people have asked me, CS for All, is that working? Is that gonna work? Well, I think I presented you with some pretty strong evidence so far. And if I had time, I could tell you so many more stories, but allow me to give you just a few more stats. We exceeded our goal of 25% adoption in the elementary space. Our goal was 5 years, we did it in 3. We exceeded our goal of passing the first pure computer science graduation requirement. We thought we'd do it in 5, we did it in 2.5. So the students will be required to have at least 1 course of CS before they graduate. Students who once found school to be a bore now have higher attendance levels, and their teachers are attributing it to the excitement that they feel about coming in and being creators. And students who were with us from the beginning, many of them are now seniors in college about to graduate with degrees like information science, computer science, and engineering. I think that's great. And all of the CS populations mirror the population of our district, which is majority Black and brown. And all of this work has been done with a budget that includes less than $1 million of our district dollars. Now, thankfully, we've had other grants we've been able to get, but that's what we work with. So do I think computer science for all can be a reality? Yes. And if Chicago can do it, anyone can do it. The next question they ask me, well, how does it work in Chicago? You know, unfortunately, Chicago is one of those places, it's probably the worst place where politics impacts people's lives. Well, maybe the second worst place, right? You know, we launched CS for All, and then we labored under other people's assumptions that it couldn't be done. I was told at least 50 reasons why it would never work. We would never get that graduation requirement, and we would not get it done. And then I went to work for a year with no budget. And once I got a budget, it was just enough to pay for myself and 2 other people. But there were 2 ingredients that we never lacked. We believed that it was possible for us to bring computer science, quality computer science, to 400,000 students in the city of Chicago. And we believed that they deserved no less. And based on that, we went forward. You know, when I think about how it worked for us in Chicago, it has always been about creating an ecosystem on the ground. You know, when you don't have money, you gotta pour a lot of Kool-Aid, and you gotta talk to people about what you believe. The other thing that we did is we went out and we found great partners. We went looking for people who believed like we did. We found teachers, very strong teachers. One of them is in this room, Don Yannick. I'm not gonna make that. Teachers like Don and Jeff Solon, and we also found dedicated principals and school leaders who either got the vision or they believed us and were willing to step out and do the hard thing. And the amazing thing is that we found partners that believed that we could make CS for All a reality. Many of them are in this room. Jan Cuny from the NSF. Yeah. And we found college professors who believed in us, who made sure that we have ongoing PD for our teachers. We have partners in corporations like Google and Microsoft and others. But I also have to give a shout out to Joanna Good, who is here in the office, and Jane Margolis for craning our lens on the reason why so many students were being left behind. And then Gail Chapman, who worked together with them to help us to bring exploring computer science to our students. But of course, there are so many people in this room, if I had time, I could thank, but I have to give another shout out to Ruth, to Kumar, to Megan, and to our president, Barack Obama, who believed in us. So with belief systems, work, and partners like these, we were able to add our voices to the national campaign. But now don't be fooled. This was not easy. In fact, if you're doing it because it's easy, let me give you a little hint. You may as well get out right now and do something else. It took determination and a never take no attitude and the heart ever trained on Pookie to get this done. And that's what it's going to take for you, even if you have resources. Some of you are more fortunate than Chicago has ever been. You have money, you have resources. But hear me, if you do not have the heart to run the long game, to build the troops on the ground, it's just not going to be enough. Many of us in this room, we know and we understand this intimately. But for the sake of anybody listening that wants to participate in this movement, let me say it loud and clear. It's not about drive-by efforts from afar. You know, like the ones for you, those of you who like me are of a certain age and you remember the Brill Cream commercials that said, "A little dab will do you." This is not that. It's like my grandma used to say, "This ain't instant grits." I don't know why you'd want those anyway. This is about collaboration and a solid ground game, one where the participants are in it for the long haul, one where we lock arms, where we bend it to the wind, we pull together, and never size fits all. The truth is that this whole effort is and always will be a labor of love. At the end of the day, we are serving communities best when we do something that is really, really hard and we get it done because others will know that we can do it. And remember, people will see your actions, but they will be moved by your love. So I have to tell you that I'm 18 days into my new gig, as Ruth said, and I'm so excited to be part of that end of the ecosystem where I can welcome all of the babies that we are building up and showing that they can get out and do great things. I'm excited to work to extinguish the barriers that we sometimes face in the technosphere, barriers that keep people from achieving all that they can. The work that I got to do in Chicago, that my colleagues are continuing to do, has a significant connection to my role at Anita B. Our best known conference, the Grace Hopper Celebration for Women in Technology, we just held it earlier this month for 18,000 women. It was so exciting. When women return home from GHC, they do amazing things, and men, because men go too. They start study groups for people in STEM. They get out of their comfort zone and they change their majors into something more technical. They take a risk and go after that advanced degree. It's a technical conference, but it's so much more, just like CS for All is. Our labs are places where kids learn more than just how to code. Yeah, this is hard work, done by people who care, and it nets experiences that are life, community, and world-changing. That doesn't mean there won't be naysayers. A couple of weeks ago, I read an op-ed in The Guardian where the author claimed programs like CS for All were a devious ploy. Did y'all read that? According to this guy's logic, school districts and tech companies have teamed up to drive down the price of labor. But we all know how deeply flawed this logic is. Learning computer science teaches kids way more than the mechanics of computer science. And if one day, even if, and I'm hoping in our lifetime, we see that we can stop fighting the problems of bias in the technical workplace, where we can come to the place where we no longer have to lament about the pipeline, we still are going to need people in our thriving, bustling democracy who can think. And we know that's what we're doing. Your work will be to open up our students' minds to the possibilities of solving problems in novel ways. Even if these kids never pursue technical careers, even if they grow up to be English teachers or government administrators or whatever they want to be, we need them to be equipped to understand new ways of solving whatever problems we face. But most importantly, skeptics like The Guardian need to face the fact that educational standards change over time. The fact that this is even up for debate is really the controversy. The other interesting thing that happens when you expose kids to computer science early is that you train their minds to the possibilities of what they can be. Just like in my story, I didn't know about computer science, and only because I was pre-med and took an engineering major where computing was required was I ever exposed. So it was an accident. And I found something that I loved. So I might not have found something. If it had not been in the core, I wouldn't have found something that I loved. I would have found something that I could do. I would have become a software engineer. So it turned out okay for me. But I just wonder, how different could it have been if I had learned it earlier? And all of the kids that we've been talking about today, in our urban districts, in our rural districts, do we think it would turn out for them that well, necessarily? When some of us have done it as relative children of privilege, how do we think it will work for them? Maybe not so well. That's why it's so important for you to continue to do the hard thing that you are doing and to stick with it. One of the most important things I took away from my experience, other than relationships with all of the wonderful people like you, was that that what you want to do never has to be impossible. No matter how many people tell you that what you envision will not work, do not back down. It doesn't have to be true unless you allow it to be. But passion and determination and partnership, these three strands together, woven, can make anything happen. There's another similarity between CS for All and AnitaB.org. How important it is for us not to rest on our laurels. You know, that's tempting, right? We've gotten some really nice successes. I loved hearing all of the wonderful things that are happening in the lives of our students here today. But we in this room cannot stop until we get to all. We must take the opportunity to so that all who would can contribute and make our world a better place. And we know that we will always need to continue to build programs that evolve with the needs of our students. I know we can do this. Stay in the fight, stay strong, keep the faith. Pookie's waiting. Thank you.